A supercar from BMW sounds intriguing, doesn't it? Well, in the 1970s, BMW was very active in racing. The legendary BMW 2002 and the BMW 3.0 CSL, nicknamed the Batmobile for its futuristic aero package, dominated the competition on racetracks throughout most of the decade. However, competitors like Ferrari, Porsche, Lancia, and others progressed, and soon BMW's motorsport success began to decline. BMW started losing to the single-engine 911, on which the Porsche 935 was based. The 935 repeatedly took victories from the technically outdated BMWs. In Munich, they said, "How long will this continue?" To regain leadership, a fundamentally new car was needed, and this car had to be mid-engine, the BMW M1. What was the fate of the Bavarian supercar? BMW decided to take a risk and develop a conceptually new car. It had to be mid-engine. Why mid-engine? After all, BMW had excellent models with front-mounted engines that, with certain modifications, could have been suitable for conquering roads and racetracks. But BMW was looking much further ahead. The fact is that a mid-engine car has several advantages. More even weight distribution across the axles affects braking efficiency, stability, and steadiness in extreme conditions. Better loading of the rear driving wheels helps the car accelerate faster. The power unit of mid-engine models is a compact and lightweight block consisting of the engine, clutch, and gearbox. The absence of a drive shaft positively affects the weight. The absence of an engine in the front allows the nose to be lowered as much as possible, which also affects the aerodynamic drag coefficient. But the main thing with a mid-engine layout is the lower polar moment of inertia. Here's a simple example. Imagine you are carrying a ladder, and at the ends of this ladder hang buckets of paint. It is impossible to turn quickly with such an awkward load, but if the buckets are moved to the center of the ladder, it's a different story. You turn much faster. The same goes for a car. The buckets of paint in our case are the power units located at the ends of the car: engine, rear differential, fuel tank. And if all the heaviest parts are placed closer to the center, the car becomes much more agile in turns. Solid advantages for an extreme sports car. So it was decided a mid-engine supercar was needed, and at least 400 units were required. This requirement had to be met, as without it, the car would not be allowed to race. But here's the hitch, a whole problem. It turned out that BMW did not have the capacity to assemble the new model. There were no free assembly lines, warehouses, and so on. And guess what? They turned to Lamborghini. The Italians were refining their supercar at that time, and then BMW approached them and proposed to jointly design and produce a supercar. Fantastic! They shook hands, and in the same year, work began at the Lamborghini factory in Sant'Agata Bolognese. The design of the new supercar was entrusted to the maestro himself, Giorgetto Giugiaro, and the technical part was handled by the best minds of Lamborghini and BMW. A sturdy frame made of square section tubes, double wishbone suspension, fiberglass body panels, and a magnificent 6-cylinder BMW engine were installed right behind the seats, achieving a weight distribution of 44 to 56. The supercar turned out not only technologically advanced, but also very attractive in appearance. 7 cars were assembled, but then something unforeseen happened, a problem they did not expect. According to the official version, Lamborghini encountered financial difficulties, but rumors say that Lamborghini and BMW engineers simply quarreled fiercely. The engineers of the two companies had different approaches and visions for the supercar's design. In short, they couldn't agree on something, and as a result, it was decided to end the cooperation. For BMW, a real production nightmare began. They needed to assemble new cars somewhere, but where? Somehow, the problem was solved. The entire assembly process had to be entrusted to completely different companies. The frame was produced by Marchesi, the plastic body by TTR. Ital Design assembled all these elements and installed the interior, after which the car went to Bauer, where all the mechanics were installed. All these processes were controlled by BMW Motorsport, and each car was reported to the headquarters. After several years of difficult development and assembly, the process was eventually streamlined, and the M1 began to to be sold. The price was absolutely insane, over 100,000 marks. For that money, you could buy 2 executive cars and 4 BMW 3 Series cars, but many were waiting for this car and turned a blind eye to everything because it was a BMW Supercar. It was said to be a direct competitor to the Porsche 911. The engine developed 277 horsepower, and due to its low weight, it accelerated to 100 kilometers per h in just 5.6 seconds. At that time, supercars from Ferrari, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, and Porsche accelerated in about the same time, and how beautiful it was. The low-slung BMW on the roads attracted everyone's attention, sleek, bright, and spectacular. Everything would have been great, but the supercar continued to face setbacks. Due to all these problems with Lamborghini and the assembly by different companies, the plan to produce 400 cars on time was not met, and BMW simply did not make it to the start of the racing season. To make matters worse, the rules changed. They couldn't wait a whole year for the next season, but the creators of the M1 didn't stay upset for long. If that's the case, we'll create our own racing series with blackjack and courtesans, and it will be the most spectacular racing of those years, and so they decided. At BMW, they followed a simple saying, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. The more victories, the more sales. It's logical, and nothing has changed since then, except that buying a car these days has become much easier. The Pro Car Racing Series consisted only of BMW M1 supercars, and took place before Formula 1 races on the same tracks. The uniqueness of the series was that Formula 1 drivers competed with drivers from other racing series, and they were all in identical cars. For the races, the BMW M1 was slightly modified. Fender flares, wide wheels, huge spoilers. The naturally aspirated 3.5-liter engine with 277 horsepower was boosted to 470 horsepower. The sound of the straight pipe exhaust system left no one indifferent. Such stars of royal racing as Niki Lauda, Nelson Piquet, Mario Andretti, James Hunt, and Alain Prost got behind the wheel of the BMW M1 and took a break from the tough, exhausting years of Formula 1. The prize fund was also substantial. The winner received $5,000, second place got $3,000, and third place got $1,000. For $5,000 at that time, you could buy, for example, a Pontiac Firebird. In addition, each driver received $50 for each lap if they could finish ahead of a Formula 1 driver. Needless to say, the passions were high, but then it took off. The M1 burst into various racing series, where its serious competitors were the Porsche 935, Ferrari Berlinetta Boxer, Lancia Beta Monte Carlo, and many others. If in Group 4 races, the M1 developed 470 horsepower, then in Group 5, where serious modifications to the design were allowed with the help of turbines and other racing magic, the 6-cylinder engines of the M1 produced 950 horsepower. To give you an idea, Formula 1 engines at that time developed the same power. The BMW M1 also appeared in endurance races, including Le Mans. The supercar appeared in a very unusual form. The car was painted by the famous artist Andy Warhol, you might say just some scribbles. Now this car is a priceless work of art. While the racing M1S were conquering races, auto journalists were singing praises to the road version. They praised the sharp steering, despite its heaviness, and admired the precision of its reactions and excellent behavior in corners. At the same time, the M1 was quite comfortable. Air conditioning, leather interior, power windows, decent sound insulation. Quite a supercar for every day, unlike the Lamborghini, which was ready to kill its owner with just the mechanical noise in the cabin. The M1 performed excellently in extreme conditions, but like all mid-engine supercars of those years, it required lightning-fast reactions from the driver to control a skid. If you dozed off for a moment, you'd get a spin. Only a well-prepared driver could unlock its full speed potential, and quite often they were bought by racers. Procar, Le Mans, numerous touring championships, and even rallies hosted the BMW Supercar, and everything seemed great. Victories were there, supercars were selling, brand fans were delighted. What could go wrong? But soon the whole celebration suddenly ended. To the great surprise of the brand's fans, after only 3 years of production, the M1 was discontinued. Out of the planned 800 cars, only 453 were built. Everyone was shocked. What was the reason? How can such an illogical and, as some claim, criminal decision be explained? The fact was that the management considered the M1 an insufficiently successful project. There were victories on the racetracks, but not often enough. Sales of the super expensive supercar were happening, but not successfully enough. The brand's reputation as a sports brand was growing, but not as quickly as desired. There were many rumors and speculations, but there were also facts. One of the reasons for the M1's failures on the racetracks was its weak reliability. Unfortunately, the raw design could not be quickly refined, and in most of the M1's retirements from races, numerous breakdowns were to blame. Meanwhile, competitors were not idle. Supercars from Ferrari, Lancia, and Porsche constantly gave the M1 a good fight, not missing the opportunity to exploit its weaknesses. For example, the same Porsche 935 was more powerful and at the same time lighter than the M1, which often made a decisive difference in races. As a result, the BMW M1 program, along with all racing series, was closed, leaving all car enthusiasts puzzled. Thus ends the story of the legendary M1 Supercar. It was the first M-Series car, and it marked the beginning of the famous BMW Motorsport division's production history. After those significant events, the company no longer dared to create something similar, as supercars are not very profitable and require a lot of resources. But perhaps in the future, BMW will remember that they once produced one of the fastest, most beautiful, and spectacular supercars, and will delight their fans with something special. Thank you for your attention. Subscribe to the channel and like the video.